So you want snares that are huge, monstrous, organic, and alive. Well, just like Dr. Victor Frankenstein tried to put together the best parts of various humans, Frankensnare lets you assemble a huge variety of acoustic snare samples into your own monster. This is an instrument bank for the free plugs for Thunder plugin, which includes more than 3,500 samples of snares. You can either use it as a snare or layer it with a human drummer for extra power, or layer it with electronic drums to give those an organic touch, whatever your music calls for. The basic deal is you can layer up to 3 snares at once plus extras all in one instance of the plugin. As we did this with layering in mind, you get everything from normal snares to really crazy out there stuff that really stretches the definition of what a snare drum could be. One of our beta testers said that this is like being a kid in a snare drum candy store. Let's start with something that's definitely not normal, but it's still basically a snare drum, just a really big one. We made this huge 22-inch snare, normal ones are 14 inches in diameter, just to sample. We recorded it with brushes, dampened with a cloth and played with sticks, and dampened with an oversized set of snare wires laying on the top head and played with sticks. Somehow that last setup ended up sounding closest to normal. Stepping back a little towards the conventional, there's a modestly oversized 16-inch snare. And for the regular stuff, there is a selection of 14-inch snares in various configurations for a variety of tones. There are also small 10, 12 and 13-inch snares for bright snap and pop. And a 20-inch snare which is really thumpy. This one was made by Bang Drums Burgdorf for a video which has racked up more than 35,000 views. Among those thousands who saw that, I am the one who had to ask, hey, can we buy this to record samples? And we didn't have to buy it. Hannes was very helpful and just loaned us the parts, which we really appreciate. So that's the normal stuff, or what passes for normal around here. It gets weirder. There's this old Polish attempt at a revolutionary redesign of the snare drum from the 1950s or 60s with giant chrome rims, the wires inside instead of outside, and it still has the original skin heads, which are probably not calf skin, maybe goat, maybe full-grown cow. We borrowed this from a collector and tuned it really low to keep it from damaging the heads, so this revolutionary design of the atomic age makes an almost medieval thud. Then there's a big floor tom with stuff attached to the top head to make a somewhat snare-like buzz. The next step up in weirdness is an old bass drum with a lot of extra lugs so it can be tuned super high, an internal baffle, and 2 sets of micro snare wires which were meant as an accessory for 8-inch timbales. This sounds surprisingly like an acoustic natural version of the classic Roland TR-808 snare. Circling back somewhat to the 22-inch snare we started with, before we cannibalized an old kick drum for its parts, we dumped 400 grams of rice and a bunch of paper clips inside that kick and set it up horizontally. The stuff rattling around inside buzzed against the bottom head chaotically, which is basically what snare wires do, but the resulting sound is very different. This is probably the weirdest sounding drum in this entire library. We also layered drums in a physical sense, just laid the 16-inch snare on top of the 22-inch one, and because 2 is not enough and putting a third snare on top would be too boring and predictable, the top layer is a drum that my great-grandfather made from a sieve around 1946. We recorded hits on the part of the lowest drum's head that was sticking out, which are surprisingly sharp and snappy, and hits on the top drum's canvas head, which have more of a fat thump. Finally, 2 things we call sympathy snares, the weirdest of the weird. Each one of these is actually a monster built up from 7 drums. You know how when you hit a kick drum the snare buzzes a little? Well, instead of making that sympathetic buzz a side effect, we found a way to make it the main feature of the sound. These recordings have 6 snares arranged around the kick, and the snare is also tuned so that the kick's frequencies make them buzz as much as possible. These were recorded by Admiral Bumblebee rather than by us personally, and he spent hours retuning the snares to maximize the buzz. The result is really full because there are many different flavors of buzz all happening at once. You can also load the snares one at a time if you want to send each layer to a separate mixer channel for separate processing or just to have more fine-grained control. The extras include 3 sets of human claps, 1 set of more fake-sounding claps made by stacking a bunch of cheap cymbals on top of a not very good replica of a medieval drum, 2 sets of muted guitar chicks, and tambourine. The snares have varying numbers of velocity layers, some even go to 11 and 4 round robins. The second layer only uses 3 of the 4 round robins, so it takes 12 hits for the sequence of layered round robins to fully repeat. This basically makes things less machine gunny when doing rolls. To finish off this video, let's take advantage of this to make a traditional EDM snare riser, complete with the pitch rising towards the end, but make it organic. And well, that's pretty much it. Head on over to shop.karoryfer.com to buy Frankensnare and our other samples. If you like them, tell a friend. If you like them and you don't have any friends, tell an enemy. Thanks for watching.